Okay, hello everybody. Now I do know some of you. I'm quite pleased. The topic today is, as you can see, workshops, Lombardic and Gothic workshops in Italy. It is, to begin, I want to show the areas which have been occupied by Langobards, mainly occupied by Langobards in Western Europe. There are discussions still now on the origin of the Langobards, where they came from. The most believable theory is that they came from Denmark, that area, from the islands, and so on. As you can see, there were several places where some groups stopped. But the main territory where the Langobards occupied a lot of place, I would say, a lot of territory, a lot of areas, is Italy, actually. To arrive to Italy, apparently, they took 200 years, about 2 centuries. They moved from probably Gothland to the Sarmatian plain, to the Carpathians, Pannonia, back to Denmark, maybe, and they also took with them populations which they found on their route down to the south. So the groups were mixed with West Goths, East Goths, Ostrogoths, as you prefer, Gepids, Aland, and Sarmatians, of course. So many of these groups remained in Hungary. It was one of the other areas in which the Lombards or Langobards stayed, and many other ones, the largest group, came to Italy, where they founded several duchies, as we will see. The first invasion happened in 569 AD, of course, and the king at the time, the Lombardic king, we call it king, was Alboin. So they occupied almost the entire peninsula, of course, at different times. What you see here, they came from the east, of course, from the northeast. So they came in from this place here. The first capital of the duchy was Cividale, today's Cividale, which is now a small town, a very small town, but at the time it was an important place. The town had been founded by Julius Caesar, so BC, and it was quite important in Roman times. And it was still important when the Langobards came. So this region is Friuli, and this was the first Langobard duchy, the Duchy of Friuli. They also moved to the west, to Trento in particular. That was the second capital. Trento is in the middle here of northern Italy. I live up there. And that was the second duchy in Italy. And then they moved to Milano and Pavia and so on, and down to Tuscany. So this was the first occupation. Here they had quite a few encounters with Byzantium. All this was the territory of Byzantium, of course, beginning from Venice down to these places. And they continued their march down to southern Italy, where they founded the Duchy of Spoleto, where there are still now many important finds, and then the Duchy of Benevento in the south. So, as you can see, all this area here, of course, this is Byzantium, but also this part here in the middle, and the state of the church, Rome, and Naples as well, Naples and Amalfi, still belonged to Byzantium, and the south as well, Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica, and so on. But as you can see, the Langobards were almost everywhere. This continued until 774, when the Franks came. the Franks came and defeated the king. At the time it was Desiderius. He already had a Latin name, so they were already Latinized, I would say, in this case. And with the defeat of King Desiderius, the Langobards are still there, but they completely disappear from the archaeological record. It's very strange. They are completely absorbed by the local population. It happened several times in Italy. As you probably know, a lot of people came down from the north, different populations, Goths and the Huns before that, of course. But it is a phenomenon which we have observed several times. After 2 generations, all these people are absorbed by the population. You don't see them anymore. They are all locals, suddenly. Okay, hi there. Come in. There are more chairs. Okay, so in this period we still see the influence of the Byzantine Empire also on Lombardic territory. So at Cividale, you remember the first capital, we have, for example, this Byzantine vessel with the typical composition. We have it's a copper-based alloy containing small amount of tin, zinc, and lead, all of them together, and it is the typical composition which you find in this period. The shape is Byzantine, of course, and there is also a writing all around on the lip of this vessel in Greek. As you can see, this is a letter omega punched with a point, and the complete writing is in Greek. So in this same period, in this same place, we have, for example, very typical Lombardic materials like this. Maybe it is the most famous kind of object, this kind of fibulae, which are made of silver. It is a silver alloy, and it is decorated with precious stones, almadnils, as you can see here in the middle, in the central part. This is not pure silver. Normally you have silver alloys containing copper because silver is too soft to be used as it is, so it has to be alloyed with copper normally, but in this case it is alloyed with brass. So it is the alloy of copper and zinc. So it's a mixture. This is silver containing copper and zinc. Of course, it is also gilded, and it is decorated all around with niello, which you call cerni, I think, right? Yes. So you see this particular part of the fibula here, the heads of animals, probably big cats, feline, whatever, panthers, lions, whatever they meant. And they are decorated with niello. You see the black lines here. This is also niello, the triangles you can see here. These parts were fixed to the fibula with iron stiff, whatever, rods. And you can see what happens. They corrode, and the entire iron comes out as a rust on top of the fibula. What is quite interesting in this case is, perhaps you have noticed, this one in the middle is different. These ones are decorated with niello and they are gilded. This one is orange, red. It is made of copper. It is not silver. It is simple copper. So it was substituted by somebody, which tells us that most probably the fibula was produced in a specialized workshop by a very skilled artisan who could produce niello. The gilding everything is not so simple. It was mercury gilding. So they had to deal with all these different techniques. But this one, the one who repaired the fibula, was a simple artisan who couldn't do that. And he decided to make it of copper, simple copper, because it was easier to do the gilding on top of it. So it was a common artisan who repaired it, while the first artisan who actually produced the fibula was specialized in a different workshop, of course. A detail which is also quite interesting is how the almandine, it is broken here, a piece is missing as you can see, how it is baked by a gold foil which has been punched. You can see the pattern, so like a grid, squares, tiny squares, and this was done on a gold foil, a thin gold foil, and then punched. The theory is that this was done with tools made of bone or even ivory, maybe wood. But in this case, I have some doubts because I'll show you immediately. This is a belt buckle, a very big one, a very large belt buckle, very typical also for this Lombardic period. It is a quaternary alloy. We have again copper containing zinc, tin, and lead. And it is cast and then punched. The decoration is cast, this part is cast, these more complex patterns are cast, and there are punched decorations as well, like there. Maybe you can see this sort of heart-shaped punched motif, and here. And I'm going to show you a detail here, and you can see these are the typical Lombardic pattern which are cast on the fibula. They were there already on the wax model. But these are punched, and they have been punched with the same tool used for the gold. You see the same pattern. So I don't believe that this tool was made of bone or ivory or wood, because you cannot punch a copper-based alloy with wood or bone. It had to be metal in this case. Another typical object are belt finials, the end of a belt, and it is iron inlaid with silver and brass. Only very few of these objects are inlaid with gold. There are some of very high situated people are decorated with gold, but the normal materials which was worn by Lombardic warriors was decorated with silver and with brass, so it's not gold in this case. Okay, let's talk about actual workshops. This is a workshop near Trento in the second duchy, if you remember, the one in the middle of northern Italy. It is dated to the 5th, 6th century AD, of course, and it can be seen still now because the excavation can be visited in the center of the town. It is underground. What I want to show you is the system used in this workshop. You can see there is a large water basin. It is made of cociopesto, so it keeps the water there. The water comes in from this side, as you can see, and this is a small furnace. Actually, at the beginning of the excavation, the archaeologists thought that this was a kind of kiln, but it isn't. It is clearly a water basin, and they thought this was just the hearth used in the house, but it is not. It is a furnace. And I would like you to remember this shape, because I'm going to show you other ones later. I also want to point out these post holes, which where a wooden beam was put to support the roof. Most probably this means that the roof was open to let out the fumes, the smoke, all the fumes of the workshop. And I'll show you later another example of this. Yes, this is the channel inside this site now underground, and as you can see, it was covered by Roman tiles. It was covered with big tiles from Roman houses. They used it to cover the channel, and these are the post holes I was talking about. So this was a glass working place, because we found cullet, which you see there, so broken glass. They collected broken glass to recycle it to make different objects. Normally they were using it to make beads for necklaces, for the ladies actually. And these are the remains of this working of the glass working. You can see they were making wires of glass to put on the beads, and so on. Okay, then we move to Fiesole. Fiesole is in Tuscany, near Florence. You see, this is Florence, and Fiesole is very close to it, on the hill next to Firenze, Florence. This is a 6th century workshop. What you see here, for example, this was actually the area where they were working. It is inside a Roman building. It was an old Roman building. You can see the rounded space here. It was not a bench for working. It belongs to the house, to the villa. It was a Roman villa. So they placed the workshop in the rooms of the villa. And they were using these big slabs of stone to work on them. This was a different kind of workshop, also a mixed workshop. There was also cullet here. You can see vessels. These are the rims, you can see it, rims of glass vessels. So they were using it, and this is the bottom of the vessels. There were also mosaic tesserae in different colors. You see blue, red, green, white, whatever. And this is a piece of molten glass which was used to produce beads. I would like to show you these because we are going to see more of this. You can see this rounded shape in the glass here and here as well. Somebody took, with an iron rod, most probably, took a piece of glass, molten glass, and turned it to make a bead. That was the normal way to make beads. Is it clear? Yes, good. So this is a typical remain of these kind of workshops. Yes, we also found several objects which belonged to the workshop, to the different workshops in this case. There were several ones. This is a piece of a balance, of a weight, a scale. The plates are lost because normally they were made of copper to be very thin. Copper is easy to hammer. You have to reheat it several times to anneal it. The term is to anneal it. But you can make very thin, very shallow, for example, plates, in this case the balance plates. But being hammered for a long time, they are fragile and they are easily attacked by corrosion. So you find the upper part of the scale, but you don't find the plates anymore. And also the chains, probably. Or maybe it was a simple thread which held the plates. We have a touchstone here. Do you know what a touchstone is? They checked the gold with it. This is a Renaissance jeweler. He has a touchstone, which you see here, and he is checking the quality of gold, the alloy, if there was a lot of copper or a lot of silver in it, or if it was a pure gold or whatever. They are still used nowadays. I have one at home just to play with. Remember this shape as well. Oh yes, and of course we found a Roman. I think you have seen the. Yep. Yeah. No. How do you? No, here. I found it. Nazad. And here, yes, the Roman ring there for recycling. They didn't use it as it was. They throw away the stone probably, and they wanted to use it for gilding or who knows, for other items, whatever. So we also found specialized jeweler tools like these. This is a pinning hammer. It's a tiny hammer like this, with this particular shape, and it was used by jewelers in particular on silver and on gold to harden it, to make it more solid. So it's a very typical object for jewelers. A punch which is completely corroded, but it is one probably which was used also for the gold we have seen before. A file, it is also quite corroded, but you can see the shape. It had 4 faces, so it had a square section, and you will see afterwards the structure of the material. And this is also a typical jeweler stake. A stake is an anvil, where you beat the object. It is flat on top, flat there, and this is the part, the shaft, which is put in a wooden block. They fixed it in wood so that they could work on top of it. Not all of it, of course, just up to here, more or less, so that they had a free space there, and they could do all sorts of things with this kind of anvil, which is called a stake. Like, working on, at the beak, they could work on rings, for example, on different kinds of jewelry. So this was the second room in the one you have seen before. This was the second room, which was a smithy, also for iron, and also for copper-based objects, whatever. There is a water basin, this one, 2 water basins actually. This is one made of, which you see here as well, made of cociopesto, again, so it was keeping the water there, while this one is hewn on rock. So it was keeping the water anyway. You see, it is rock, and the water channel went down here. And here you have the water channel down here. And these were the benches where they were working, 3 of them. So it was quite a complex workshop where they were working different materials. Yes, I'm going to show you quickly what the metallography of these pieces looks like. This is the stake, so it is the special shape of anvil, and as you can see, maybe it is a low carbon ferrite, which is only partly spheroidized and annealed, and they could work on top of it easily. It was not too hard in this case. This is the file which you have seen before. So you have a well homogenized bloomery iron, bloomery steel actually, which had been quenched and tempered in water. So you have this kind of structure, and it was very hard. This is the hammer, and you see on the tip you have this kind of structure, while in the middle they didn't bother to harden it, and it was simple ferrite. Yes, these are several objects which were in the workshop for recycling, like a Roman spoon, a Roman pendant. That's a Roman lamp. You can see it's quite big, quite heavy, like this size. And a lot of Roman coins made of copper-based alloys that they couldn't use anymore, so they melted them down and were using the metal only. There was a big bag of these coins, small coins that could not be used anymore. What is quite interesting is this fragment here, which is an Etruscan fibula. This tells us that they were also digging Etruscan graves to pick out the object and melt them down to use them as simple metal, as bullion. This is an example at Augusta Raurica in Switzerland, at Kaiser Augst. You have the same kind of objects in the workshop, like Roman coins, fragments of glass, again remains of working. This is molten glass here, and more objects, more Roman objects for recycling. This is a very important cluster, I would say, of workshops, several workshops, which have been found at Aiano Toraccia near San Gimignano. I've been working on the excavation there as well. It was a very, very rich Roman villa. The theory was, and I think still is, that a very important person was the owner of this villa in Tuscany. Somebody even said maybe it was an imperial villa, but we don't know. It has not been completely excavated, of course. This is the nymphaeum. Do you know what a nymphaeum is? Part of the Roman villa in which they had a closed place with mosaics and water, different water basin, fountains, whatever. So they were using the nymphaeum in the summer to keep cool, to be, have a drink in a pleasant place with the water flowing and with statues and whatever. So this shape is quite typical for an nymphaeum. You have different sort of apsis-shaped walls, and there were also here some rounded walls. It was probably a room with 6 lobes, I would say, but those have been changed to square rooms later. So you see there are some remains of mosaics here, but the main mosaics were on the wall. On the wall, probably with the representation of water scenes with nymphae, something like this, or a wood with water, a lake, something similar. So a lot of blue and green tesserae, mosaic tesserae, of course. In the 5th century, the villa was built in the 1st century, but it was abandoned in the 5th century, and immediately afterwards it was occupied by the Langobards and Goths, actually, in this place. We have typical metal objects which are of a Germanic type, Langobards, and we also have ceramics which are typical for Goths. So it was a mixed group which occupied the villa. For example, they installed inside the wall of the you see the rounded wall here, one of the rounded walls. This was used as a kiln for ceramics. They built a rather big kiln for ceramics in this place. And there were still, on the excavation, we found broken ceramics and whatever. On the other side, you see in one of the rooms next to the nymphaeum, this was a smithy, so a place where iron was worked in this case. And it was quite a complex smithy, actually. You can see the water channel coming in with a deep bowl, I would say, in this case. There are two more on that side and another one here, which was, however, used for keeping cool the food, the drinks, because we found a pot for wine in there and other containers. So this is one of the double pits. You remember there was this double pit on the right side. This is the typical color of the basins which were used for tempering iron. You see the deposit of iron oxide on the walls of the pit. It was really red like Genia's jumper, or even more red than that. And these are the finds, of course, slag, but workshop slag. It's not reduction slag. They were not making iron. They were actually recycling iron, as shown by the composition of this slag. It is not a slag for producing tools from scratch, so from bloomery iron. No, it isn't. It is a slag which comes out of recycling. Near the entrance of this room, there was a sand bed, which you see here. The earth was brown, kind of normal earth, and in this corner, it was really bright yellow. You cannot see it here on the photograph because there was a strong sun and it looks all the same here. But this was a sand bed, quite a lot of sand, brought from we don't know where, to be used in the workshop. This is also an important indication for a smithy, for a workshop, because they were using the sand to spread it on the iron when they were working the iron, to protect it from oxidation, first of all, but also to put there finished objects which were still hot. And we found there these thin wires made of iron, which are quite difficult to make, of course. It takes a long time. And they produced a lot of these, most probably to make a mail chain, most probably for something like this. So this is the reconstruction. You see the deeper pit here. There were two huts on two sides, on both sides of the smithy. So there were more people working in it. We found the anvil and so on, and several tools. The water was coming in from that. So these are the two sides, of course. And you see here the two pits. This is quite important. Why two pits? But normally because in one they had water, and in the other one they put either oil, olive oil, for example, for tempering in oil. You get a different structure, or urine, maybe, or something. Legends say that they were using blood as well, but I don't believe it. And you see here how the reconstructed roof was. This is also very typical. We found this kind of construction in several places, also in earlier excavations, like in the Iron Age, particularly up north. The workshop was closed all around. There was only one door, but the roof was also open to get out the fumes and so on. What else is there to say? Yes, this was the place for food. You see the pot there, and yeah, and the water was coming from the upper side. On the other side, I'll show you. So, next room, a bit further, in another of these rooms, we found this big pit there. There was a Roman tile put there like this, and a big piece of terracotta, whatever it was, a fragment, and thousands, really thousands of mosaic tesserae at the bottom. What were they doing here? They took the tesserae from the wall and they washed them here. At first they roasted them quickly to get rid of the mortar, to free the glass from the mortar, and they washed them in there, on the tile, apparently. So this is the entrance to the Nymphaeum, and in the entrance of the Nymphaeum, I would like to show you here the small furnace, pits, channels, one here, one there, and so on. I'll show you more afterwards. So this was, and also we found a lot of glass here, tesserae and fragments of worked glass as well. So there was a glass workshop. The furnace is very similar to the furnace described in the 11th century by Theophilus in his treatise. I forgot. I forgot the title. I've been using it all the time, but I forgot. It doesn't matter. As you can see, there are sticks inside the clay of the furnace, and I found the sticks in there as well. The difference is that this furnace, described by Theophilus, is all made in clay, while ours was made of stones and bricks. Actually, also pieces of tiles, Roman tiles, which you see here. This is the bottom of the furnace. Even the bottom of the furnace was a Roman tile, and you see there the material of the dome of the furnace mixed with fragments of snails. These are the snails which I found actually next to the furnace. So they were remaking the top of the furnace all the time, because it collapsed probably all the time. And inside the clay, I found fragments of burnt wood, and also the imprint of these sticks, which you have seen in the drawing before. So it was inside the clay. So the dome was supported by sticks. So these are the channels. They were also covered by Roman tiles, as we have seen in the previous workshop at Trento. And yes, the pits and so on. Yes, and of course, this is the entrance of the water channel, and they could stop the water with a piece of tile. You see the piece of tile in situ there. It was to close and open the water flow into the pit. So from Theophilus, we know that Roman tesserae were collected and exported, in particular to Germany, because people were able to produce glass, but only transparent glass. They were not able to produce colored glass, which was not transparent. So they wanted to have this particular glass of the Romans used for the tesserae, the mosaics tesserae, because they could make a lot of things with this colored glass. Yes, this is the material, part of the material we found. You see again the half molten metal which was used to make beads. You see the shape. So a piece of glass was taken with a rod and turned to make a bead. This is the same kind of, here as well, the same kind of shape. They were making beads of this kind. You see red with blue and white wire on it, a blue one with white, which is also there, and several colors, green and yellow and so on. So I analyzed the glass, of course, and as you can see, I found this piece next to the furnace, really almost inside the wall of the furnace, and this is a bead we found elsewhere on the site, and they have exactly the same composition, exactly the same. So, and it was the same with the green tesserae and these two green beads you see here, these oval beads. It was just exactly the same composition. We also found gold tesserae. They were made of different glass types. This is a dark green, transparent glass, but it is not purified. It contains a lot of iron. The upper plate is transparent glass and without any color. So they were using a different kind of glass, a purified glass. The gold was put under the plate on the top. And they were recycling the gold as well, because we found a lot of plates with gold in another room next to the glass furnace, and they were using cupellation, so mixing the glass fragments with lead. This is a lead ingot with a strange shape, but it is lead, and they used it in a furnace, in a small cupellation furnace, where they could oxidize the lead and recover the gold, of course, on top of it. This is the place where we found the small tesserae with gold, and it is also a place where there must have been a goldsmith, because we found two touchstones there. Again, you see it is a simple tile on the floor. We found ashes on top of it, so it was a very simple kind of workshop. They were working on the floor. Yes, normally these kind of stone plates are interpreted as cosmetic plates to mix cosmetics, or for medicines to mix unguents or whatever. But it is much better to keep in mind that one of the uses, particularly with the very dark ones, could be the use as a touchstone for a jeweler. This is one from Kurion in Crete. Also in this place, they were collecting Etruscan objects. You see a few here, fibulae and bracelets and whatever, children bracelets actually, from the graves, and they were recycling the metal. You see the channels here. So the entire system, all these workshops, all of them, were connected to the water channels, and there was a water reservoir on the top of the hill, a Roman water reservoir, so it was still working, and they got the water from there. You see, the system is very big, and the villa is very big as well, of course. So in general, the activity in all these workshops, as you have seen, was recycling. They were mainly outside of town because of the fumes, of course, and the noise as well. And different productions were put together: iron, copper-based alloys, glass, whatever, gold, and so on, because of the system, because they all needed fire and water. So in particular, all these water channels are a very good indication for workshops of this period. That's it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yes. Thank you for the lecture. That was fantastic. I'm interested in one question. How many workshops do we know in total? We've seen, as I understood, 4 of them. Maybe three. But yes, there are more. And how many do we know in total?
Oh, I don't know how many there are. These are only the ones I've been working on. So I suppose, well studied, there are about, I would say, 20.
A lot of.
Something like this, but I'm sure there are many more.
Thank you.
Many of them have not been recognized as workshops, I suppose, because
they are recognized as something else, maybe.
Yes, but you have seen, for example, in the case of the Trento workshop, it took some times and broken glass and whatever to distinguish the furnace, which is very typical actually, and it is not a hearth, a normal hearth which you have in a house, but it was interpreted as a normal cooking place. But
it is not.
It is not, no.
Thank you.
So the difficulty of recognizing these sites is to distinguish them from the simple living facilities or something.
Yes, particularly because in this period, especially, as I have shown, the Langobards, and not only, occupied all the buildings, which were actually houses, which were dwellings of people, but they reused them as workshops. Even this beautiful villa, it was considered a mine at the time. You know, they took the gold, they took everything. They took the glass, yeah.
And I have a question of it. Does we know the where uses the Roman workshops?
You mean if in Roman workshops
yes,
there was recycling?
They was recycling or occupied by the Langobards. Does we know something like this?
Other ones, you mean? If there were Roman workshops which have been occupied by...
Yes.
I don't know any. I was wondering about that as well, because this is what I would do. You know, if you arrive, you have it ready. But no. No, strangely, I don't know of any.
Thank you.
But it is possibly because also Roman workshops were in very simple buildings, very simple ones, like, you know, just 4 walls and not much more, and open. So probably as the entire area was abandoned for a while because everybody ran off, they were more or less destroyed after a while. So they wouldn't be occupied. They would occupy buildings which were still standing, which had a roof.
Yeah, thank you for the lecture. I have a real question about their products. Do they integrate the Roman tradition in their product, or was it exactly the same as the Germanic tradition in their arts and other stuff, or maybe they integrate something from Roman and in the recycling process.
I wouldn't say that. No, I wouldn't say that. I showed the influence of Byzantium. You find that, but these are imported objects, and there are also local imitations, of course, of Byzantine objects of import. But yeah.
Thank you. And do they export their products in the other territory, or they only made it and recycled it only for their use, not for export, right?
They were using them, yes, they were using them. There was not much to export, actually, because why they were recycling all this stuff? They were looking for metal everywhere, as you have seen. They were digging graves, trying to find metal, because in this period there were almost no mines in use, because the people who could work on the mine were able to work on big mines, had run off, had been killed or whatever, and nobody had the skill actually to work in the mines. For a long period, after the 6th century, I would say, there were almost no mines in function until the 12th century, 12th, 13th century. There is a new beginning in the 13th century, I would say, where you have also some studies of people who study minerals and all that. So you have a new beginning of mining in this period. But in these very long centuries, there is almost nothing. That's why they are recycling all the time. They didn't have other possibilities.
Thank you. Is there any question? I have one question.
Yeah.
You showed the iron rods in one of the pictures.
Yes.
Is there in these sites any instruments what was used to make this kind of rods, or is there only the product? I mean,
Well, they were hammered. They were hammered.
Just hammered.
Just hammered. I forgot to say, I think, that they were using the threshold of the door, a big slab of stone, as an anvil. So they were hammering this iron to produce thin rods, thin wire actually, and it is very difficult to do it. It's very complicated. So this was a very skilled kind of smith. And it is known that Langobards were actually very skilled smiths and also goldsmiths. They didn't do that much with copper-based alloys, but I think the problem was to get the metal. It was difficult to get the metal. So they were melting down Roman silver plates, big plates, Roman plates, to make fibulae, and they mixed them with molten alloys mixed up. The composition of this time shows that they were melting down all copper and copper-based alloys they found. They mixed everything up, and that's why we find zinc, tin and lead in them, a small amount, because it is all mixed. Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you for coming.
That was
Thank you.
so interesting.